Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 12 of In the 11. Today we are talking what has been absolutely talked to death for the past 6 or 7 months, and we are talking COVID-19, coronavirus, the pandemic, how it has changed numerous people's lives all around the globe, and specifically how it's changed my life a little bit, and how things have changed for me and what I'm doing to try and move forward in the midst of this pandemic and how I think that's going to play out for me. So without further ado, let's get it rolling. Now, first I just want to say that I am completely aware that I am by no means, really suffering. I understand that this is a pandemic in which millions of people have lost their lives or become ill or lost loved ones, and as I said, I am grateful and blessed to be in a position where I'm still healthy and living comfortably, and I'm not in huge financial distress or anything like that. I wasn't unemployed or really in a bad position. So I just want to make that clear that I'm just trying to lay out for you kind of how it's affected me and what my goals and plans are moving forward in the midst of this crazy time. I hear that saying all the time. It starts to drive me insane when people say this crazy time, these uncertain times. It's on repeat, I feel like, in the news and in media and stuff. But I think the biggest thing for me is when people talk about, how have things changed for them in the midst of this pandemic? How has your life been altered? I think I would definitely argue that my life changed drastically. From the simple perspective of I was supposed to be in a completely different country for the past however many months. I was supposed to get on a plane, I believe it was March 14th, and fly to Bremen, Germany. And I had accommodations booked, and I had things set in place for me to go and live in Bremen for probably about 3 months, and maybe more if things progressed in a different way. I don't know. So that was big for me when people would ask, well, how are things different? And I was like, I was supposed to be in a different country, so that's certainly a big adjustment for me now being here. So that week was really crazy for me. Like I said, it was, I think, the second week of March, and I had flights booked. I had an Airbnb where I was going to stay out for the first week or two until I figured out a more permanent housing situation. I had the club lined up, and really it wasn't until the Wednesday before I was supposed to leave on a Sunday. The Wednesday before was when it kind of snowballed, the things shutting down due to the pandemic. Professional sports leagues were canceling games and postponing seasons, and businesses were starting to shut down, and just the talk was kind of escalating, and then that sort of spilled over into travel as well, and non-essential travel was starting to get banned, and people were needing to quarantine if they went in and out of certain places, and I just sort of started to realize that it wasn't going to be the best situation for me to go over and be in Germany and potentially put myself in a situation where I was overseas by myself and then kind of in lockdown, and maybe have the possibility of not being able to fly back to the United States. Because at the time, we really didn't know exactly what kind of all the rules were, and there was definitely difficulties if you wanted to travel, especially internationally. So that was kind of my fear. Not only that, but with the possibility present of not having any football to play, that was kind of a deterrent as well, because the whole reason I'm really going there is to play. So if I don't have that, I don't have a job, I'm not going to school over there, what would I do for all this time by myself in another country when I don't know anyone? That was another component too, is I was planning on going, meeting my teammates, and maybe starting to kind of build friendships with some of them. And then if I wouldn't have training or I wouldn't have games, how would I start to become acclimated in the culture and start to meet people? I wouldn't. I would just be kind of in wherever I was staying by myself all the time. So like I said, it was that Wednesday, and then I think I made the final decision on Thursday before leaving, and I was in contact with the coach just saying, hey, like, I'm watching the situation, but it doesn't look good. Like, what do you think? Do you think your league is going to keep playing? And of course, like, a coach doesn't really know that information. They're not a government official, or they're not a member of a health organization for a country. So he's like, yeah, I think we're going to keep playing. And so I kind of took that with a grain of salt, and it was really hard because I didn't want to feel like if I stayed home and then watched the whole league play out the rest of the season, that would have been so hard for me, just knowing that was the next step in my career and how hard I had worked for it. So luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, but and then the following week, that league that I was supposed to play in, they postponed it and canceled for the rest of the year. So at least in that sense, it was a positive that I wasn't missing out on anything. I wasn't missing out on my team playing matches or being a part of that season. So then, I'm kind of just in the States now. And again, I have no idea how this is going to go. I'm thinking, okay, maybe we're just going to shut down for like a couple of weeks, or maybe like a month or two, and then I'll be able to get back over to Europe. Like, I kind of was just in this sort of state of stagnancy in a sense, always thinking, yeah, probably like April, May, certainly by summer I'll be able to go back somewhere and be able to play again. And, here we are, it's September 2nd when I'm recording this, and I'm still in the States, and we still have intense travel restrictions placed upon United States citizens. So that first week after I decided not to go was just kind of getting my bearings back and figuring out, okay, what am I going to do now? It was trying to get my money back for the flights, which never really panned out the way that I wanted to. I more or less kind of ate that money, and same with the accommodations. I was going to stay in an Airbnb, and I messaged the owner of that Airbnb and was like, hey, because of the coronavirus and travel restrictions and everything, I decided it was best not to come. Airbnb has a policy where up to a certain point you can get a full refund, but then after that you'll get a percentage each day closer to the actual check-in date. And then if you cancel, it's kind of at the discretion of the owner of the location in which you're staying at and whether or not they want to fully refund you or not. So I kind of asked and was hoping I'd get the full refund. I didn't, which I also understand. I mean, people who rent out their houses or rent out rooms in their apartments for Airbnb, they need to make money too. And in the midst of that pandemic, they might have been counting on money coming in, and then it didn't anymore. So there's no hard feelings there. Obviously, I wish I could have that money, but so now I'm in a tough spot. I am in the States. I am not playing. I don't really have any teams or anything lined up over here where I'm living to stay at, and I'm going to be living at home because that's just the best possible situation for me. It doesn't make sense for me to go out and try and rent an apartment on my own, pay rent when I don't have employment over here, when I'm hoping at any moment I could hop back on a plane and get over to a club somewhere and play. So I just, like I said, it was just a state of feeling kind of stagnant and not really knowing exactly what to do. And that lasted for about a week or two. Really just kind of coming off of the realization that, all right, now I need to figure out a new path, a new roadblock has been thrown in my way. So what am I going to do? How am I going to bounce back from it? So I thought about a lot too, how as the month kind of progressed, the months kind of moved forward, I thought, I wonder what could have been, which I know isn't always the best mindset to have, but you can't help yourself from kind of drifting off into that place of, what if I had done well going and playing in the 6th division in Bremen, and I know I would have gone on numerous trials as well, probably with some 5th division, maybe if I got lucky, a couple 4th division clubs. By the time June, the end of the season rolled around, would I have had an opportunity to move up a level again, or move up 2 levels or something like that, or would I be in a better position with a new club, or even with that same club? I don't know. The club that I was going to was 12th in the table, so I knew even if I had come and had an absolute amazing season, there wasn't a chance of us getting promoted or anything like that. I think we only had 12 or 13 games in the back half of the season, so there just really wasn't a way for us to get promoted regardless. But if I had done well on a personal level and made a little bit of noise, like, could that have resulted in something? So that question kind of, it creeps in sometimes when you don't want it to, and it's just the, what if? Like, where would I have been, or where could I be now if all this didn't happen? But I think the biggest thing that has happened in my shift in mindset, and honestly, it took me a while to get to this, and it's really just been recently where I've started to feel like I've been in a really good place. Honestly, the best that I've felt in, I don't know, maybe a year or two, just because I stopped harping and getting hung up on little things, and I kind of just allowed myself to be, and this might sound cheesy, but I kind of just allowed myself to be confident and proud of everything that I've done and everything that I'm doing. I allowed myself to give myself the credit for going overseas and pursuing my dream, and still sticking through my dream and pursuing it even now with all this hardship that has faced me. I've really started to look at it recently and been like, this is just another thing that's been thrown at you, another piece of adversity. You knew it was going to be difficult. All these episodes that I've done and I've shared with all of you out there, it's like, I tell you the stories of how I got cut from teams, and there were failed trials and heartbreak and tears and all this, and for a while I'm like, oh, like, why is this happening to me, this pandemic? Like, it's deterring me from doing what I want to do. It's not allowing me to achieve my goals. And then I just started to kind of rethink all of those thoughts and emotions and be like, this is just another obstacle to overcome. And if you've come this far with everything that you've been through, there's no way that this is going to hold you back. And at the same time, I have this kind of thought that it's like, now I know, even if a pandemic comes, like a global pandemic, it's still sometimes crazy to hear those words come out of your mouth, because it's never something that you would really anticipate would happen in your lifetime or at all. And I know even a global pandemic isn't going to keep me from achieving this goal. I'm not even going to say trying to achieve this goal. I'm going to say achieving this goal. Has it made it difficult? Hell yeah. I'm a person that's very goal driven and results kind of oriented, and that means that even when I'm not having success or I'm facing failure often, which I kind of was in Germany. I was in a tough spot with my club. I was not always training the best and just struggling at times. I still felt as though I was moving the needle forward and progressing in a way that was going to positively benefit me in the long run. What's tough about being in the situation I'm in right now is there's a lot of areas in my life in which I have done exactly that, and I've put myself in a better position. But there's also things in terms of my soccer career in which I feel like I kind of feel like a horse who just his gate wasn't opened when the bell went off for the race. You know, I just feel like I have all this ambition and this drive, and there's nowhere to really channel that energy into. So it's tough at times. It's for sure tough at times. But the way I shouldn't say always, because I really don't. And honestly, this deserves so much credit. Should go to my mom for this, because she instills this in me all the time, and that she always tries to teach me to look for the positive in any situation that you can. And I think I've tried to do that more and more as this time of really reflection and being home has afforded me that. I think I kind of look at the situation as maybe a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I really had the chance to look at that opportunity that I was going to in Germany and think, okay, I felt like I almost just jumped into it because I knew it was the highest level team that was interested in me. It was 6th division. I just thought having that on my resume that was going to unlock all these doors. But then I started to think more, and I'm like, well, there were other teams that offered you maybe in the 7th division that were maybe going to pay you a little bit of money. And at the end of the day, if you do well at 7th division or 6th division, is that going to be the difference between a 5th division team offering you a trial? I don't know. And if you're making a couple bucks a week and maybe you can buy your groceries and things like that and not have to dip into your savings so heavily while you're over there, would that be more beneficial long term for the longevity of your career? All those questions I kind of looked at, and I'm like, maybe this gives me the opportunity to really evaluate that opportunity and think, what else is out there? And I've done that, and I've explored more opportunities, and now I have a couple on the table that I think could maybe be better. And I really genuinely feel like maybe that was what I needed to have happen to find the correct path for me. Maybe I was going down the wrong path, and this has led me in a different direction, and this is going to be the way that I need to go. You know, I one of my biggest philosophical kind of conundrums, if you will, is everything kind of already predetermined? Is your fate set out for you and you're just sort of kind of along for the ride, or do you make choices and do you make decisions that directly impact what goes on and whether or not you achieve your goals or whether or not your goals change and all those things? And I think that this pandemic has kind of given everyone that opportunity to fully exhaust both of those sort of theories, right? Because I think the pandemic in itself has directly impacted a lot of people and changed their lives for the good or for the bad. but it's also then allowed you that opportunity to see what you're really made of, and if it's affected you poorly, can you get up, can you dust yourself off, and can you keep going even in the face of adversity? Or maybe it's affected you positively and it's given you the opportunity to explore a new market, explore new passions, do something new, something different that you have never expected, and now you're on a completely different trajectory in your life. This right here, me looking at this camera, talking to this microphone, is the perfect example of a blessing that has come out of this pandemic. This concept has always been something that I've wanted to do. The podcast, it's always something that's kind of bounced around in my brain, and finally I had all this free time from about March through early May. I wasn't working, all I was doing was training. I had so much free time. So I was like, why don't I just do it, you know? Who cares if it sucks in the beginning? Who cares if it still sucks 12 episodes later? Why don't I just do it, because it's always something that I've wanted to do, and then I'll have the framework, I'll have the foundation built for if I want to continue to keep doing it once I start playing again, which is absolutely what the goal of this podcast is. You know, the goal of this podcast kind of, when I first started 12 episodes ago, was, okay, do this for a couple episodes, and then hopefully, you know, some point by now I would be doing episodes somewhere overseas and talking about the journey and talking about training every day and talking about matches and kind of giving you a play-by-play, so to speak, of what's really going on for me. I'm hoping that those types of episodes and that sort of content is coming for you sooner rather than later, because I just think that that's going to be able to bring so much value, and it's going to be so cool to be able to share that experience with so many different people. So, like I said, this podcast has been an amazing kind of benefit of what the pandemic has allotted for me. So that's an opportunity that sort of blossomed from this. As I had said as well, there's been opportunities that have arisen with different clubs that if I was over in Germany, I probably wouldn't have even emailed teams from these places or these levels, or I wouldn't have sent out my highlights. But that's been a great outcome of the situation, in that, you know, I'm in a position now where if there were no travel restrictions in place right now, I could get on a plane and go to a couple of different teams right now, and I think that they're really good opportunities that I have. I'm also looking at ways in which I can maybe kind of move around the travel restrictions, and so those are still some works in progress to maybe see if I can get out of here a little bit early and keep moving forward, you know, and keep striving for more in this profession and in this game. These past few months have, as I mentioned before, really given me the opportunity to kind of go intrinsically and focus on myself as a person and as a player. As a player, I'll touch upon first, it's been challenging to find high-level training. I haven't had really access to team training or matches on a consistent level, and so it's just been so much work putting in by myself, which I'll be so transparent with you, it's so hard sometimes, because normally in an off season, when you're training on your own, you know, you have a distinct end in sight, and it's typically a max, like a 3-month kind of block you have allotted. So you know you have X number of individual training sessions, and that end goal can motivate you to stay focused within those individual training sessions. Right now, everything is still just a question mark. So I have to stay fit and I have to stay ready because I don't know when anything's going to open back up again. You really don't. And so it makes it hard too, because there's also the redundancy of when you're training by yourself, there's really a tedious sort of nature to it. So I've had to get creative with it. I've had to do new drills and search, and can I find walls to train with, and can I find a partner here and there to train with when people want to. And I've been able to do that recently. And can I go out and seek out coaches who have started individual training. I just recently, probably about 2 months ago now, started doing a few sessions with a company and a coaching staff that does individual trainings here in the capital region of New York area. And that's been just great to, I mean, honestly, I went and did a session this morning. It's so great to be back in that environment of being pushed mentally and technically and physically, and also just to be coached. Like, that's something that I really enjoy about the game, is having people push you and having people ask more of you, and me trying to learn as much as I can. How can I become a better player? That's really the end goal of all this, is how can I become the best player I can be. So that's been so nice as a player to add that component to my individual training. And the individual training has been a lot of fitness emphasis, a lot of body weight training, because gyms were closed for quite a long time, just starting to reopen now. And then a lot of technical ball mastery, dribbling stuff. So I feel like that aspect of my game has been raised, and that's a positive that I can take from this whole situation, is that I now feel more comfortable on the ball with different surfaces, with different parts of my feet, and that's only going to help me when I get back into a full training environment. I know just for a fact that it's going to take me a while to readjust. I need to get back into the speed of play, and it's going to be hard. It's going to feel like I'm almost like I'm walking again for the first time, because you can't replicate what it's like to be in a match or what it's like to be in a full speed training session just on your own. It's just impossible. So I know that's going to be hard, and I'm just preparing to make sure that I have as limited rustiness as possible when I get into that environment, and how quickly can I make that transition from kind of shaking the cobwebs off to back to full form, back to raring to go. And the fitness component is a huge part of that, because if I'm fit and I'm going into a situation, that kind of time in which I can get back to peak form is going to be shortened, because I'll have the fitness capacity and the fitness load to be able to handle the technical and tactical tasks that are being asked of me. And if I wasn't in peak fitness going into a training environment like that, the difficult thing is that I would have to kind of play myself into shape and then get up to peak form. And with all the time that I've missed thus far, these past few months being out of the game, I can't afford that opportunity, or I can't afford that extra time to get myself to where I need to be. It has to be as seamless and as smooth as possible, because I was actually just speaking to one of the coaches who I'm hoping to go play for soon, and he sort of mentioned, we would have to kind of ingratiate you in a different way once you get here, because you haven't played since December. And he kind of laughed and said, not that I'm sure you've forgotten that. And I'm like, no, I have not forgotten that. I think about that almost every day. I wake up and realize I haven't played a competitive match since December. And that's so frustrating sometimes, but I have to let the things that are out of my control stay just that. They're out of my control, and I can't dwell on them, because it won't do anything positive for me. I talked about it before as well, but I think the pandemic has allowed me to I've spent so much time with myself and with my family too. That was what was so cool is I got to spend, the past 6 months, honestly even longer than that, because I was home in December. So I've been with my mom since December, and then my sister came home from college, and we were together for the past few months, and she just went back to school. But the pandemic, it allowed us to be so close, and allowed us to kind of gain a new appreciation for each other and spend so much time together. And it just reaffirmed that even when I'm in those other places, that I have two people that are just undyingly loyal to me, and that reassured me that I have that and I can call upon them even if I'm in a tough spot somewhere else. But it also, like I said, it gave me so much time with myself to really kind of think about how much I've done, and how I'm one of those people too that can pick myself up when I'm down, and that I can rely and count on people when I need to. But a lot of the times I thought I was counting on people, and really I was just counting on myself. I was leaning on my own shoulder, and it's been cool to kind of have that awakening, I guess you could say, of me kind of realizing exactly who I am and growing as that person. And that only kind of helps me pursue this dream with that much more vigor, because I question myself less, I doubt myself less, excuse me, I worry about what other people think about what I'm doing less and less, because I know I just need the approval of myself, and I have that. So that's been cool to kind of develop that newfound appreciation for just who I am and what I'm trying to do. And whether I get there or not, I know that me putting in all this work, and me devoting myself to a craft and devoting myself to a goal, it's only going to make me a better person. Like I said, whether I really achieve everything within the game that I want to or not, I'll know whenever I decide is the time for me to officially hang up my boots. I'll know that I did absolutely everything in my power, and nothing outside of me choosing to leave the game is something that derailed me. I'll be able to say when it's all said and done that even in the face of a pandemic, I didn't quit and I kept going. And, that's just been so cool. I think that's a big thing that I've been talking to a couple of friends and teammates about recently, that I think is something that's worth noting. I think there's going to be a lot of players who are kind of in a similar situation to me, that are grinding it out in the lower leagues, that are still waiting for that break, or were searching for that break, and they haven't really kind of found the level that they're looking to achieve. They're sort of teetering on success. I think there's a lot of people out there who are going to quit. I think there's a lot of people who are going to be in this situation and say, man, I don't want to train on my own for these next 8 months, just hoping that something's going to maybe come. Because, I look at a lot of players who, if you didn't have any opportunities, or you didn't have any resume prior to the pandemic, that's hard to then go into, for almost every player around the globe, besides those highest level players, to then go into this full stretch of just blank on your resume. You have to almost then start from square one once the pandemic is over, and once you can really play matches again. And I shouldn't say the pandemic is over, I shouldn't say, square one once the pandemic is over. As we all know, the science is saying that the pandemic isn't going to be over for quite a long time, but just whenever we're in a more stable situation, I should say, where sporting events can happen more seamlessly across the globe, that's kind of that jumping off point then for you. And we don't know when that is, but that's that jumping off point for when another player can build their resume. And I think a lot of players will look at that situation as a whole and say, I don't know. I don't know if I can push through all of that and still come out on the other side. And part of me, I don't blame you. I mean, listen, we're in an incredibly trying time in which a lot of people have been impacted so difficultly with their health, with their mental health, but also with their financial health. So it certainly is a difficult ask to say, let me continue putting my financial resources into trying to become a professional footballer and maybe not going out and getting a job that I know is going to keep me safe and secure. I don't knock anyone who is, maybe thinking about not pursuing this dream anymore because of the situation that we're in. I've been really blessed, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, I've been really blessed that I've been in a situation where I can live at home. I can live with my parents. I don't have to pay rent. I can live with my mom, I've been in an environment where I still have that protection and that sort of safety net. And I know not everyone has that. So, I'm not knocking anyone who's going to just call it quits and go about trying to do what's best for them or for their family. However, I know I'm not necessarily going to lose sleep over those players out there who are quitting. I'm not going to feel bad for you because it's more opportunity for me. It's more room for me to go out and do what I'm trying to do, and the less competition, the better for me to land that pro contract. So it's something that I've thought about a lot, would this still be the best career path for me to still keep attacking? In the very beginning of the pandemic, I started to interview for full-time jobs, office gigs. And I was like, my mindset was, well, I'll get something, I'll put myself in a better financial spot, I'll make money, I'll get out of my credit card debt, because I was funding Germany and I was funding all the travels on a credit card. Anyone that saw, my life through a very small lens didn't see the flip side of it, which was I was dead broke, you know what I'm saying? Like I had no money and I was just literally grinding. I just wanted it so bad. I was just like, I didn't care. In a sense, I shouldn't say I didn't care, I didn't like spending that money like that, or putting myself in debt, I should say. I didn't like that. I liked spending the money because it was in pursuit of my dream, and I just knew it was going to pay off. Like, I just knew that there was going to be the day where I signed the contract, and then I know that I'm good, and now I can get out of that debt. But that was my goal, or that was my plan in March, kind of April, when I first realized I was going to be here. I was like, all right, I'll get a full-time job. I'll get financially super set. I'll get out of debt, and I'll be equipped to, whenever it's open back up, then I'm coming out and I've got enough money to just attack this thing full on. I won't have to worry about that. And I kind of thought, there's also a route where I could just get this full-time job. When club soccer starts back up in the U.S., I could maybe coach for a club around here, maybe get back into the college game once I'm in a better position financially. Like, crossed my mind a time or two for sure. Because it's an easier road, and there might be less heartbreak down that road. But man, I just couldn't, because I looked at all that and I said, to give up now would just be, after everything that I've put into it, would just be a waste. And I would look back, I think, in 10, 15, 20 years and always ask what if. And that's the one thing that I fear most, I think, in this life, is getting to a point where I look back and I say, what if I had kept going? And what if I had kept trying to become a pro? Would I have done it? Because when you get to that point, you can't go back and change anything. Now I'm in a point in time where I control my destiny and I control my fate and I hold the cards. But there's going to come a day where all you're going to be able to do is look back. And I want to be able to look back, and even if I never played at the highest level, I want to look back and say, yo, I did everything. I did everything that I possibly could. Because, you know, if I just went and got a full-time job and, you know, you wouldn't have this podcast, no disrespect to anybody working the 9 to 5, but what would I talk about on here? You know, what would all of that debt that I put myself in and bought plane tickets and all that stuff on the credit cards, what would all of that been for? You know, just a couple month vacation where I got to play a little bit more footy. Like, man, like I said, it's been a very introspective time amidst this quarantine and amidst this pandemic. And I think there's so many lessons that I've taken from it, and it's taught me so many things. I think the big one is just realizing that I'm strong enough to, in the face of all this, in the face of maybe when others would lie down, that I'm going to get up and keep going and keep going and keep going. And even a global pandemic is not going to keep me from doing what I want to do and from getting to where I want to go. Now, with that being said, I would like this timing to move a little bit quicker. You know, the travel restrictions that are in place are an enormous obstacle for me right now. I check, you know, the websites and updates as often as I possibly can to see, is Europe back open yet? Is Europe back open? But right now, anyone that's traveling for non-essential travel that has an American passport can't go to Europe because our coronavirus numbers have been so bad, and because there were a number of states who didn't really follow the protocols and the rules, and maybe aren't following the protocols and the rules now, so Europeans don't want us over there, which makes sense. So again, it's something that's out of your control, though. I think what's so frustrating about this for many people out there is they can't grasp that there's so many people in the country that can't, you know, kind of suffer for a little bit, suck it up, follow the protocols, follow the rules, so that we can have the greater good on the other side. There's so many people that are just angry that they feel like the government is trying to infringe on their rights and their civil liberties and banning them from doing certain things that they want to do in their everyday life, when really that's not what it is. It's just, you know, it's trying to take time to get the numbers to a better place, to try and corral this disease as much as possible, so that then this doesn't continue to drag on and last for months and months and months. You know, sadly, we're kind of still in a state where that's not always happening. Well, I will say, from the actual state to state perspective, New York has been getting slightly better. Even though everyone, you know, was looking at New York in the beginning and saying we were patient zero and nobody wanted to go to New York, now people are looking at it like, oh, maybe we should have done what New York did, because we're starting to do a lot better in terms of our containment of the disease and in terms of our numbers, while some other states, you know, Texas, California, Florida, their numbers are still climbing. So I hope that we can get to a better place with this pandemic, not solely for the purpose of me being able to travel to Europe, but also just because, you know, people are dying. It's, I know this can maybe seem like a sort of selfish episode because I'm just talking about how this has affected me, but, you know, I haven't known anyone who's died of this disease. I haven't been infected with this disease, or really anyone that I've known, but there are millions of people out there that are getting infected and are passing away to this disease. So you don't want to see that happening, especially in your country. It's difficult and it's frustrating because we can't really, you know, tangibly have that firsthand experience of the disease. And so that sort of is what maybe warps someone like my perception or thinking of the disease and thinking it's not really affecting us. And we need to be able to have a broader scope and to look at the disease from a holistic perspective and say, you know, maybe it's not affecting me personally, but there's things that I need to do to keep others around me safe. Because, you know, I'm speaking to these people that are over in Europe, and it's completely different over there. They followed the rules in the beginning, and now, you know, there's certain places where they more or less are living a normal life. There's some mask wearing, there's still some social distancing. You know, you can't pack thousands of people into a football stadium, but businesses are open. You know, everything isn't shut down, in which a lot of things in our country are still shut down. So, you know, that's just, I guess, food for thought and my recommendations of what we can do to try and continue to get out of this difficult situation that we're in. But man, the moment that they say Europe's open, I don't know. I don't know how long you can hold me back from not going, but it's exciting because like I said, I have clubs that if the travel restrictions were open and we weren't a banned country anymore, that I would be hopping on a plane and playing football soon. I am trying to also figure out some ways to maybe make my trip more of a quote-unquote essential travel, because right now the rules state sort of you can only enter the country if you have legitimate reasons for going there. I made that sound more dramatic than it was, but you can only travel to these countries if your reason for being there is more of a legitimate and essential reason, meaning you have a passport from that nation, you have a work visa, you have a student visa, you have a job interview, you have a business meeting, you have family there, you have a spouse there, and I know all these things now because I've done all the research and I'm trying to figure out how I can get over there. So, you know, it's me in talks with clubs that are sort of me saying, hey, can we maybe frame it in this way, in which I'm coming over and I'm not just, traveling around Europe and just doing touristy things. I'm coming for a legitimate purpose, and that's to play football. And although it may not be at the highest professional level where I would be provided a work visa just yet, it is sort of kind of the borderline of that. So is there a way that I can maybe be allowed access to the country as well? Also, some of the requirements are that you have to have a negative COVID test and all those sorts of things. So I'm just exploring all the different options of me maybe still being able to go, even though there's not completely open and free borders. So that may progress quicker than when the borders actually open, or I may just go when the borders are open to all U.S. residents, whether it be non-essential or essential travel. In the meantime, I'm still just doing the same old. The nice thing has been these past few months, since about May, I started working in a restaurant. I was bussing tables, and now I'm a server. So I work quite a bit, actually, probably 5-6 days a week, and then fit my trainings in around that, and fit the podcast and all the other things that I do in around that, which has been really nice because it's put me back on a schedule where I feel like I'm busy again, and I feel like I kind of have more on my plate. And that has allowed me to take my mind off of things when before, March, April, I was just spending so much time just thinking and overthinking. And now I have time most days where I can go and I can get out of my own head and I can just work, or I can just train or do whatever, and have longer periods of the day where I can switch off a little bit mentally and not be overanalyzing and overthinking everything that's going on in my life. Additionally to that, it's also really, really helped with me financially. Now I'm in a position where when I can go back over and travel, and when I can go and play again, as I said before, I'm going to be set up to play. I'm going to be set up to really go after this thing with the full intensity that I can, and I'm going to have the money to back it, to fly wherever I need to pursue more opportunities that maybe I couldn't have previously because I didn't have the funds for it. Now I'm really ready to go out and do this thing and hit it with a bang. I'm just now having to buy a new car because my car finally crapped out on me after years and years of giving me headaches. So the job has been able to allow me to do that as well, to get a new car and then get out of all that credit card debt that I had accumulated from the trips, and really just be in a better footing financially to be able to go and do this and not stress that component of it quite as much. I still can't go out and just play for free for years and years, but it just is going to put a little bit less burden on my shoulders and hopefully alleviate some of that stress that comes with chasing this dream, if only for a little bit. So needless to say, my story of how the pandemic has changed my life may not seem as drastic or may not seem as detrimental as a lot of other people out there who maybe have lost jobs or not been able to go back to school, or have maybe lost loved ones. And I completely understand that, and I can sympathize with that. But it definitely has altered the course that I was on, and I'm just really trying each and every day to put myself in a position where once things get back to a little bit more normal, can I be ready, and can I go out and can I just keep trying? Can I keep knocking on doors, and can I make this happen for me? And I'm proud of myself, the way that I've grown and I've changed over this time. Because in the beginning, you know, I probably wasn't really in a very good place, as I know a lot of people were. I was struggling with the anxiety and the overwhelming feelings of doubt and worry about what was I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I was sitting at home March, April, and most of May just doing nothing. I felt like everything was out of my control, and I don't like that feeling at all, and it's something I never want to have again. So I had to take firm action to try and put everything back in my power and let me have control and me be in the driver's seat. And I've really tried to do that, and I've had some success with that. So now it's just onwards and upwards. It's just staying on the path that I'm on and exploring all avenues that I can. And as soon as I have one that is concrete and I can make it happen, then we're there. And the journey continues, and the dream lives on. So I feel I'm in an optimistic and positive place right now. Cautiously optimistic because, you know, as we watch the news unfold the past year or so, things just can change rapidly. So I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm ready whenever my number's called upon to get after this again. So thank you so much for chilling with me for the past hour, everybody. This has been a little bit of a different kind of style, I guess you could say. You know, a little bit maybe more intimate. You kind of get to know a little bit more about me, just kind of who I am and how I tick and what goes on kind of in between the pipes up here. I've enjoyed this one because I think it's kind of given you a more real inside look into maybe what's going through the mind of a professional or aspiring professional athlete in a time like this where things are out of control. I always have fun hopping on these podcasts with you guys, but I hope that you guys enjoy it too, and I hope that you enjoy the content that I'm putting out for you. With that being said, if you liked this episode today, or you've liked any episode or anything that I've talked about, definitely let me know. Or if you hated it, you were like, yo, that was weird. Why were you talking to me like that? Why did it get a little bit to a therapy session like that for a second? Let me know that too. It all helps me sort of mold what I want to put out to everyone, and what I maybe should leave for just myself. Because this platform is me trying to share a lot with you so that you can better understand a person like me chasing the dream. You can better understand things about football. You can better understand things about trying to become a professional. But at the same time, it's not a completely transparent look into my life. You know, there's lots of things that I'm still going to keep close to the chest and close to the vest. And when you sort of provide me with feedback and provide me with insight onto what you thought, that shows me, you know, okay, should I share more with the audience? Should I share less with the audience? Should I be more informative? And all those types of things kind of help shape what I present to you. They don't necessarily shape who I am as a person or change me, but they shape who I can be in terms of a content creator, and how I can kind of shape the narrative so that I can help other people out there, can help other players out there. So if that feedback you'd like to drop, you can do that in a couple of different ways. I have an email that you can send me an email and let me know your thoughts. That's in the11pod@gmail.com. In the number 11@gmail.com. And also, we have the new Instagram page, which is rapidly growing. So thank you to many of you listeners out there who have followed that and have shown love over there as well. You can kind of see, if you take a look at it now, we have some clips cut up. We have some quotes that I've pulled from clips from elsewhere. We have just some motivational stuff, and there's going to be a whole lot of different avenues that we can go with that. So you can shoot me a DM, or you can comment on any of the posts and let me know what you thought of a specific episode or a specific component of an episode, or if you'd like to hear about something new going forward. You can also follow me personally on Instagram as well. That's linked on that In the 11 Pod Instagram page. You'll see I'm tagged there a bunch as well, or you can just follow me at Brendan_Griffiths10, and you can shoot me some feedback to the podcast there. Other than that, we've still been rolling. We've been doing well, hitting pretty decent numbers on all the streaming platforms. I would love it if you could go, if you're listening on Apple right now, and you've made it this far, do me a favor, hit that 5-star button and write something. Tell me anything. Tell me you think the podcast is awesome. Tell me you want to hear about this. Tell me anything about the podcast. Would love to hear some more ratings, some reviews, stuff like that. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Drop me a comment. Hit that like button for me. That'd be awesome. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, even if you listen to the podcast on a streaming platform, please hop over to YouTube, search my name, Brendan Griffiths, and subscribe to the channel, because all of that stuff, all of those little things really just help it grow, help the podcast get more notoriety, get more exposure, and more people can listen, and more people can hopefully be inspired and can hopefully take something from what I have to say. So thank you guys for chilling with me for the past hour or so. Thank you for all the love and the support on all platforms. Continue to do so, and tell your homies about the podcast as well. That's pretty much all I got for today. So I will catch all of you guys soon with some new content, some new interviews coming up, some new episodes in the future. See you later.